Hideo Kojima is a creator that many gamers have had a sort of relationship with, me included. His works created and defined its own genre and continued to be the master of that domain for many years to come, where his finest works would come out of the Metal Gear Solid series, its own spin in stealth, his ideas about society, his ability to make it connect to a person on an individual level, and his inspirations from many action movies just shine through. That and his ability to crack a joke every now and then. My personal favorites of that series would easily be MGS1, 3, and Peace Walker. I'll never forget Snake's final moments with his mentor along the end of MGS3. It was a defining moment for me and how I thought about him as a creator and the narrative potential of video games. Clearly, in some sense, it was the same for him, seeing that he carried that concept on the 5th and controversially written installment of Metal Gear Solid. With that last title under his belt, he went on to fully depart from Konami, which led to its own set of events, including being denied to receive an award for his own work. From creating his own franchise of games that would sell so well across the globe, to making every fan dig through every detail he leaves in his trailers, to making headlines across gaming media over a few events. This man, having his name attached to anything, had heavy implications, and that is why when you see a title start with a Hideo Kojima game, it really meant something. Sure, it sounds a bit pretentious, but at the same time, the prestige towards such a label was, for all intents and purposes, earned. When he said he wanted to make his own game, PlayStation went ahead and wrote him a blank check, and he definitely went ham with such a powerful wind behind his sails. That Stranding would feature some insanely popular names in the film industry, give us an entirely new world, and concepts he would incorporate into his craft, but also did something that many creatives would do, and strive to set himself apart from his previous works. You see this similarly happen to people in the film industry. Christopher Nolan would swing from high fiction to superheroes to historical biographies, and Daniel Radcliffe would take on much more mature films after his long journey as Harry Potter. Some commit to dedicating themselves to new endeavors to avoid getting pigeonholed into doing one thing, while others aren't as bothered by it and eventually go back to what they're more comfortable with. My encounter with the first Death Stranding game left me with a bit of a split opinion. I could understand the appeal of the system, the goal of the developer, and the quality of the production, but I also felt like it was indulging itself in its own lore a little too much, as if I was speedrunning the latest updates of Kojima's philosophy class. I had a hard time keeping up with not only the characters and ideas he was putting forward, but also coming to terms on what he was trying to execute as a game director. It felt like he was so determined to be different from his older works to the point of detriment. It was a Hideo Kojima game, but maybe one that felt like it was under transition. But if you knew anything about this man and the way he worked, he got more daring and more comfortable with new ideas the second time around. I more fondly remember Zone of the Enders 2 because of how refined it made combat and movement. Peace Walker only got to stretch its legs as much as it did because of the lessons he carried into it from Metal Gear Portable Ops. Metal Gear Solid 2 was the one that really maximized what could be done on a PlayStation 2. And while I think the cycle continues with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Perhaps because he doesn't feel like he has to prove the new concept, or maybe he no longer feels the need to set himself apart from his past. Or it could be simply that I'm just running into less surprises this time and I can focus more on enjoying the game. But I do feel like the second installment is better paced, less abstract, and better defined in what it's trying to achieve with you. But either way, this introduction has gone long enough. Let's get ready for the new journey, walk into the tar, and go knee deep into the details and review a Hideo Kojima game.
Oh boy, that was hard.
It's not like that. They're not trying to take over the world.
Administering shock. Stand clear. These entities are simply being driven back to the world of the dead for the time being.
I tried to recall what I saw in the first game, and honestly I couldn't say that the game looked that different from before, so I decided to do a bit more research and check out the videos to compare the two. The footage I saw of the previous game was apparently played from a PlayStation 5 Pro, and even with that you can see the generational jump between the Death Stranding 1 and 2 games upon a closer look. The first game looks closer to something like Metal Gear Solid 5, models are detailed, landscapes feel natural, and even faces are well defined. And to be honest, it looked Well, it looks good. Death Stranding 2 improves on this with two major components, lighting and particles. Global illumination lit up most of the scenes in the former title, while the second one has a lot more sun to give you. Back then, shadows were more or less reserved for main characters and larger objects, and now even smaller foliage and loose items become better melded with the world as they interact with the light better. On top of that, dust getting kicked up by running, jumping, or tires rolling over the ground look closer to what they might look like in real life. But the real wonder that they've achieved here with the updates on tech shows in how they make sandstorms, rain, snow, and how all other weather effects look and how they change dynamically with the light and how it interacts with it. This is probably the most noticeable change off the bat. More subtle changes are those that are involving textures, making everything look more detailed. This is particularly true for everyone's skin and Sam's suit, as it gets splattered with tar, mud, rain, and blood. All these changes help produce a more consistent, interesting, and beautiful image throughout the game. Though those with trained eyes can tell when the frame rate suffers a bit when a lot of dust or rain is going around. However, I don't think this ever happens at the same time as combat is going on, and my standard PlayStation 5 doesn't seem to choke too hard during these times, so I would give Death Stranding 2 a pass for this issue. Stages also feel more interesting to go through as well. Abandoned urban structures are now also part of the environments you get to see. What you get to look at during the more relaxed part of your travels, like the sky, the mountain range, and the surrounding bodies of water, also serve as little spectacles for you to enjoy when you're not trying to dodge ghosts, bandits, or robots, or at least not trying to get dragged to the land of the dead by any of them. Getting over a mountain ridge felt plenty rewarding without having to go up one, so I get to enjoy a nice view but not feel out of breath. Even private quarters and other indoor spaces don't look as sanitized, they look more and more lived in as you progress through the game as well. Another thing that improved a lot would be Norman Reedus and Leia Seydoux, forgive me if I mispronounced that. Their performance felt more natural, more expressive, while not getting too far from their more subdued style of acting. I'd have to say Troy Baker was definitely the scene stealer back in the first game, and even this time around. However, the rest of the cast aren't resting on their laurels either. Sam Bridges and Fragile are more fleshed out with a wider range of their actors are able to express themselves with. Maybe they feel more comfortable now that they're working together for a longer time. Maybe they learned from people like Troy. Perhaps another part of it would be the more consistent presence of a wider set of supporting cast this time around. It would give them more personalities to bounce their energy off of, and opportunities to show different sides of their respective characters given their relationships with different people. A stark contrast from its predecessor, where people were more or less isolated in general. That being said, the script plays out in such a way that there seems to be a pause before anybody gets to respond. I definitely think that the way they talk, it could go faster, but maybe that's just my preference. I mean, you can totally see that in how fast I talk. Fatih Akin's performance to me was what I enjoyed the most. He played as Dollman and was more or less Sam's advisor. And the comedy that his acting won me over while he's mostly sitting as a strangely animated, lifeless doll is not lost on me. The guy just has a way of talking to you and makes you think everything's gonna be okay. Speaking of things you hear, the music selection in this game is amazing. The music they play at the opening sequence as you walk down the mountain, perfect. Generally, many of the music pieces that they've included in this game are a healthy variety. Definitely the bulk of them are meant to be these relaxing tunes that help you get immersed in your surroundings as you trek through the lands of Australia. And to be honest, I think they're all great to listen to. Now, there's a few tracks in there that are definitely sticking out from the rest, and definitely they're just for fun. Not to say that the game isn't consistent in its theming, Woodkid's compositions are a great fit for the game. My personal favorite would be Minus 61, as it really encapsulates the scale of Sam Bridges' journey across the continent. On top of that, they've also built a score around some of the first game's themes, BB's theme being one of them. And well, I'll leave it to you to hear and enjoy for yourself. The way Death Stranding 2 has presented itself is actually kind of bolder, with the performers on the screen having more confidence in the roles they've taken. And honestly speaking, I believe it's all coming together when you're playing the game and the best song for the moment starts. The basic mechanics of how Death Stranding works as a game hasn't really changed that much on its second installment. Your basic mission is still being a delivery man bringing cargo from one place to another, where your setup is that of the Bokos of Japan, delivery men that make it their duty to bring items to people in more remote, hard-to-reach places that most delivery vehicles can't reach, going through difficult terrain and somehow balancing a towering stack of items on their back. You, playing as Sam Bridges, are going to do the same thing. It's not as exciting as the usual action games where you get down to shooting baddies and that's most of the game. No. This is a game about planning and logistics, and if you've seriously played an RTS or been exposed to certain conflicts, you'll quickly learn that managing logistics is one of the most important things to get right, or else the whole operation just falls apart. Once you decide to take an order, you plan out your delivery route first, evaluating the risks and obstacles that you might have to take versus the time and effort you'll have to spend should you choose to avoid them. Overall, what truly matters is the condition of cargo once you get to the destination. So long as you can guarantee that, how you approach and solve the problem is up to you, and I really love stuff like that. Maybe you're okay with carrying a few extra ladders to cross a river with minimal risk. Maybe you're confident about dealing with bandits whose camp is in the way of the best route to take. Nothing like a little stealth to knock the entire base of soldiers unconscious, right? No unfamiliar territory there, no, not at all. You might also want to leave some space in your backpack, carrier, or vehicle for some unexpected packages towards your destination, as sending these to the intended recipients, helping you improve your relationship with them basically for free. Being a lighter packer also gives you an advantage in being able to move easier and manage Sam's stamina better. I haven't even talked about the run and gun action of Death Stranding 2, and believe me, it's there. There's just so much to consider and balance out with what sounds like a boring time of just delivering products. I thought it was, I was proven wrong. But how the game didn't really change that much in terms of mechanics, but somehow also gave me such an entertaining time today, I'll get back to that later. Another way to make deliveries easier and more successful is to build and improve infrastructure. We're talking literal bridges, watch posts, charging stations, shelters, and full-on highways, and even train lines. Yes, these can get tedious in terms of having to bring what is probably a large amount of resources to one point, to the point that you likely need to make return trips regularly. But it does pay off in being able to guarantee fast, safe travel between locations. It makes doing requests between them more convenient to do. This in turn lets you farm likes, improve your relationships with other people, and when that happens you can get more resources from them, gain more points for your app hack upgrades, and give you new or improved technology for you to try out. Maybe sometimes just a nifty hack. Either way, that game is willing to reward you for putting in the time to build it up. I honestly got held back by a bunch of hours just working on this for a while, because I genuinely enjoyed it. Then, I realized I had a time limit to get this review out, so I couldn't afford to build a network of roads for the rest of the game. In a sense, it's like you're developing an ecosystem. You gain more benefits out of it by taking care of it, but you also have to consider what your immediate goals are. And if you're willing to put so much time and effort into places you might not really like returning to, you also have to rotate what you're focusing on based on your resources. Sure, you can develop mines to give you all the ceramics and metal you need to build roads, but to operate those mines, you need chiral crystals, a resource you can best farm off tar pits, and well, giant BTs. And if you want to have a stock of weapons ready to hunt them down, you'll need other types of resources to produce and maintain an arsenal, blood bags, exoskeletons, and more. It really is quite a complex set of relationships, but you never feel like you're out of options in what you can do next. And how this system works in essence hasn't really changed, yet it works so well this time around. And well, what did change? And I believe it's because of how well paced the content is. The game starts with Sam enjoying his life of isolation with his baby, Lou, where you are visited by Fragile and she asks you to finish one last job, which doesn't seem to be too much to ask for Sam Bridges. After all, what could be wrong with getting everyone connected to the chiral network? Clearly, if it was just one mission, we wouldn't have the rest of the game to happen. But let's just say tragedy strikes and this leads to a journey through yet another continent. The agreement for the review asks us not to reveal anything big about the plot, and I do think it's best that I don't and leave that to be discovered by those who want to play the game. If anything, I'd like to say that the main plot, leaving out lore implications, isn't too complicated. It all ties up pretty well in the end, and for now you'll just have to take the trust me bro seal from me. More importantly, I find Death Stranding 2 as a game where you do things and not just wait for cutscenes to finish much better paced. Back in the previous title, you might end up with long stretches of travel where it felt like you were just waiting for things to happen, and also sit through maybe hours of cutscene. There would be climbs that took so much time just getting over the peak and having to manage a treacherous steep climb down, and not to say that these moments don't exist in the second game, but you're definitely getting to the action faster. Your delivery routes will have you deal with either a change of terrain, a new threat, or a side objective you have to consider, and these changes tend to happen without overstaying their welcome, especially if you're basically sticking to the critical path of the main story quests. You can be doing a regular delivery first and then find yourself having to dodge BTs or bandits within a few minutes of your departure. You'll be going through craggy rocks, sand dunes, forests, snow-covered mountains, and dangerous tar pits. Maybe you finally got to your destination only to find the boss lying in wait, or to just completely avoid combat, you chose to build a railway or bridge to make your life easier. I for one couldn't help myself when I saw gaps in the Kyle network and ended up serving those locations even if I didn't need to. This is actually what consumed the bulk of my side quest time. If there was a section that I wasn't expecting to leave such an impression on me, it would be going through the forest fire. Having to pace myself between stopping to shoot and snuff out fires and running away for dear life. The way they put you in the middle of all of it while desperately trying to escape. I never realized how terrifying it could be to be in the middle of a forest fire until I was actually put in the middle of it. There's also a couple of new toys for you to use and play against for whatever challenges you come across in the game. Specialized equipment for traveling, combat, and more. New types of weapons, the Blood Boomerang being an interesting on-the-nose addition. Dollman also doubles as a drone camera for you to freely use and scout out the area ahead of you. There's even a rubberized pizza out there if you're willing to find it. This is more of an open world game, so there is content to be found out there that's way away from the critical path. Reading a book can lead to watching the origin story of a certain character. Raising the relationship with someone can unlock a funny event. There's even landmarks that are left out there in the open, and you'll never reach it if you just stick to story missions. These new additions, new factions, and new tools for you to play with shows that Kojima is a bit more comfortable with his history. That he's willing to infuse more of that into Death Stranding. You'll see a lot of references and nod to his older works, and I'm all here for it because I believe that his creative vision really becomes complete when he allows himself to be silly, when he allows himself to take his silliness seriously. You've seen the trailers and you know there's a guitar gun out there along with what looks like a giant cyborg samurai. And the amazing part is it doesn't stop there. That comfort and confidence spills over to the other people involved in making this game. Cameos were allowed to make their own in-jokes, actors were able to express themselves better, and things that I typically don't think Kojima would really come up with, I find them here and there. Proverbially, the game director is literally walking the talk as his game speaks strongly about collaborating and contributing to something bigger. And what we end up with is a game that is rounder, more varied, and larger in scale. All of this neatly tied up together by its themes. Death Stranding 2 features a training mode along with missions to match. I greatly appreciate this because it gave me a space to test new weapons and master how the combat worked. It also doubled as a gallery if you wanted to see the enemy units up close, because some of these are gorgeous or horrifying depending on your taste for mechs. It also has a data archive that lets you review your current and past orders, as well as giving you some easy to read text to catch up with the story in case you need some details refreshed. There's also several autosave slots that help you roll back any accidents you may want to undo, like losing an entire vehicle filled with cargo into a tar pit, which was not me at all, no. It even has a summary of the first game's events, so you're not too confused when you start the second one. Finally, there's the online feature, and this is where it all comes together. You see, building roads, railways, and other infrastructure is a daunting task for one person. For example, the largest load of metal you can bring is 400 units per pack. You need this to develop roads and improve things like charging stations as well as craft gear. You can maybe bring 3 or 4 of these with you without a vehicle, but that's leaving out the idea of you farming this amount of metal. You later find that to build roads, which is the best structure you can have in the game, you may need several thousands of metal, along with other resources. Imagine having to spend so much time finding, retrieving, and delivering that much material to complete a stretch of road. That feels disheartening to hear, right? Well, with the help of the chiral network, that might not be as hard as it sounds. Once a region is connected, it is now going to share the contributions of other players, along with you, within the region to your game session. I don't know what the specific ratio is, but they can help out with how much you need to spend to get these things built, and you can help them in return. This isn't just for roads and railways either. You can share bridges, ramps, watchtowers, and more between you and other players to make everyone's journey that much easier. You can even entrust cargo and equipment to terminals within your ship or other locations so that somebody else who might need the gear can use that in their time of need, or maybe you just want to leave stickers and messages to leave hints along the way. For my own game, somebody left me a fully kitted out off-roader vehicle which I eventually turned into my own invincible tank that lets me carry all the cargo and takes me anywhere I want. This is how I dealt with most of the latter part of the game as I raced to finish it in time. In return, I left weapons and other resources for people where they asked for it, and I also helped build roads that were convenient enough for me to do along the way. This helped me farm likes, which also plays as a multiplier when you're getting graded for your deliveries. This also helps you later when you reach post-game after clearing the game's main story, letting you do whatever you want, whether that be completing roads or railways you decided to come back to later, or link up areas that are still in the dark to the chiral network, or do other fun things the game later reveals. Finally, there's a feature that drove me to complete the chiral network, which is the music player. So long as you're online, you can play songs that you've received at any point, which is pretty good when you're driving a lot. When you expose yourself to a lot of creative works like games, movies, and comics and more, you can start to tell the difference when a person truly involves themselves in whatever they're working on. Like if they put a piece of themselves into it. You can see that. Like you can hear a promotional song for a product or some politician and you get sick of it instantly. You know it's just advertising to you. There are works that just try to please as many people as they can and it never really works for anyone. But then you see something like Hideaki Anno's Evangelion or Kagura's Ash Again and even Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. These works draw from something within their creators and you can relate to it. As you experience what they show you, you can tell there's another person on the opposite side of that creation. This could be the fanboy in me, but I really did feel like Kojima was able to do this again with Death Stranding 2. If you research his past, you might be able to see the parallels he's lined up in his story with his own life. If you played his works, you'll be able to easily recognize how he celebrates them. And if you understand his tastes, you'll soon feel like he's geeking out, gushing about the things he likes in front of you for the huge part of this game. It comes off as honest, and by extension, authentic. By the time you've reached the final chapters of this title, he knows he has you in his grasp, and he just starts playing you through all these crazy scenarios where I might as well be watching him set up these big dioramas of action scenes from movies and promptly asks you to go ahead and enjoy it. I was laughing, dropping my jaw in disbelief for what big action set piece he has next, where he would take the game from 0 to 10 and then 11, then why not 12? He and those around him have learned a lot about what they did right with the first Death Stranding game and stuck to their guns while recognizing what they needed to improve on for the second installment. So what else can I say? But Kojima Productions have truly delivered. Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is a journey you should take, scoring a 5 out of 5. Available exclusively on the PlayStation 5. And that is it for the review. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Guys, I enjoyed this game so much. I did not expect to enjoy this game so much. I am so happy about it. But with that, I am gonna go on my own little journey for the next bunch of weeks I will be gone. So it'll be a while, but I will make videos again. But until then, I'll see you.